I'm Jonathan Stevens, and today we're going to get started with NVIDIA Cosmos. That's right, I'm going to show you how to make text to video, video to video, and image to video using NVIDIA Cosmos on a Windows machine, and this should also work for Linux. So let's jump right into it and take a look at how to get started. So I want to start out with the NVIDIA Cosmos build page where you can get a preview of what you can do. This is called video diffusion. Basically, it's going to take a prompt and it's going to decide the future of what that prompt will look like in a video. So if you go to build.nvidia.com, you'll see a bunch of models. I will link this in the show notes where you can go and do this yourself and play around with it. But just to do an experience, there's a text to world and an image to world. And so what you can do is you can just type in some sort of theoretical and it will generate an example. And you can do 20 of these requests. So it could be a car driving down a large city block at night. There we go. Run generate new video. It's going to take about 60 seconds. So I will jump ahead in this video so you can see the output. Okay, so here we are. We have this car driving down. Well, that's different. It looks like the car decided to get to the stop and reverse itself and drive back. But, you know, this is early on and you can play with it. This was not a great prompt, but as we play with this, we'll get much better. Notice if I move my head to the other side, it did upscale my prompt. So that's something that we're going to go through when we go through this. When I give it a basic prompt, it's going to turn it into this long upscaled prompt. The other version we can do is image to world. I can't necessarily show you that example, but if I go here, here's some images. For example, here, select, it has this image and then it's turning it into a video. We can also take a video and turn it into a video. So that's what we're gonna jump into. So again, if this is new to you, I will have all the links in the description of this video. And if you're finding this helpful as you go along, please subscribe to the channel because I will have a lot more content around this coming up soon. So now let's jump into the code so you know how to build this on your Windows machine. Okay, I'm going to start the beginning of this hands-on tutorial portion of the video, just orienting ourselves with the GitHub Cosmos page because there's a lot here and you don't need to look through all of it. Not all of it will really apply to what I'm going to be teaching you. But if you're not used to GitHub, it can be kind of confusing. There's a lot here. So as I scroll down, you got the Cosmos, you got your links, but where the meat starts to come together is the key features, and they have multiple features for Cosmos. It does a lot of things that we are not going to cover in this video. This is more for generating video diffusion, so creating snippets of video from text, from other pictures and video prompts, and that's this pre-trained diffusion-based world foundation models. And so most of what we'll be looking at is within this link right here. There's also an autoregressive. If you have a smaller GPU, this is something to try. If you read their paper, the results aren't as good from that as diffusion. So if you can, let's stick to diffusion. And as I scroll down further, you have these really interesting pages. I'm just going to open one of these in a tab, and you get a lot of information about these foundational models. If you get into the specifics, if I zoom in here, they'll tell you like with output formats it will do, what input formats it wants, how long of a text prompt. So you can do a little research here yourself. I'm going to try to cover as most of it as possible in this video, but again, it's good knowledge to have. So if I go back to the first page, you can get down to this usage examples. And so this is where you have your installation guide and then the different two models that you can run, and then just a script of a prompt. And this is what you would get when you run it. And notice that it put that on the face over and over. That's what's called the guardrails. They like to blur out faces, things like that for safety. And that's what that is. So just kind of orienting yourself with this page. Now in my instructions, we're actually going to use a modified version of this page. So I'm just going to jump to that. I will link that page and the original page into the notes for this, but I created one that says Cosmos WSL2. And what I have here is basically I took the same page. It's called a fork, so it's a clone of that original page. And I added some of my own instructions for running this on a Windows-based environment. So it is not the same, but also it's not updated. So if they do updates to the original code, I want you to know that it's not reflected here. But this is where you want to basically walk through the instructions. And also, I will be updating this as time goes. So again, if it looks a little different from when you watch this video, that's because I keep evolving this, addressing questions people have, things like that. So as you get in here, the main thing I want to say is, okay, read first, you know, what's the intentions here. And if you can jump straight on, I added an installation section. This is a hardware intensive thing to run. So you're not going to be running it on a like old laptop. You need at minimum 24 gigs of RAM. So you got your 3090 plus. So we have that works on Blackwell, Hopper, Ampere. So the 3090 is Ampere, a 4090, the 5090 is coming out will be great. You need that 24 gigabytes of RAM. So here you go. I have minimum hardware configuration. So you want a computer with an RTX 3090, recommended more like an RTX 6000 ADA if you want to be doing like the most detailed output possible. We're going to get into then how do you set this up. So I have installation to set up your WSL. So WSL is basically running Linux within Windows, because although this instruction is for Windows, you still have to run it in Linux somehow. So first thing I want to notice, if you have Linux already installed, which you can easily do, you can just go to your command prompt, and from here you can go type in WSL and then space L or dash L space dash V, and that'll list the versions you have. You can see what Ubuntu version you have. For me, it's 22.04. That's not the latest. 24.04 is the latest. So if you have that already installed, the latest, you need to go get an older version. But I'm going to go grab, since I already had one installed, it's already set up, I'm going to set up a second Ubuntu. So if you go to the Windows Store or Microsoft Store, you can then search for Ubuntu, and you'll see there's different versions. So I have 22.04. Let's go with 20.04. I shouldn't have that already. We're just going to hit get, and that'll install on your machine. I do recommend 22.04. It's like the most updated that'll work for this. That's what I had. So the one that says 22.04, and then any of these subversions will work just fine. So that's downloading, installing. Okay, so now I'm going to go hit open, and now it's going to install it. It will take a few minutes. You're going to add a username. Let's see here, Jonathan, new password. You don't see things when you type in password, which is kind of interesting, but it is going in there. There we go. It's completed successfully, and then it should be set up. There you go. So it doesn't take very long to install. There we go. So I'm going to close this. And now if I go back to my command prompt, make this big, I should be able to go WSL LV like so. And you can see I have two different versions, and one's running, one's not. So that's what I want right now. You should just have one version unless you know what you're doing and you want multiple versions, things like that. The next thing I need to do is modify the memory access. So by default, when you start one of these instances of Ubuntu on your machine, Windows only gives it half of your memory allocation. So by default, if I go open up my Ubuntu to run it, by the way, if you click this app Ubuntu, it's going to install the newest version. That's not what I want. I want the one I just installed here. So 20.046. If you type in free-h, make it a little bigger, it'll tell you how much memory you have and how much swap memory you have. And so memory is your system memory, your CPU. So, you know, you buy like 64, 128, something like that. And then swap memory is basically saying if you run out of memory, it's going to steal some from your hard drives. So if you have a fast, SSD, you can get away with that. And I modified, so I have lots of extra. I don't think I've ran over 62, but I've gotten close. So I'm going to put it in there. By default, you will probably, if you have a 64 gigs of RAM, you will see 32 gigs here, and you will see 8 to swap. So if you have 128 gigs, you don't have to worry about this, but if you have less than that, follow these instructions. I'll just skip this section. So what you got to do is you got to create what's called a config file. So every time Ubuntu starts up, it looks for this config file. And to do that, you basically gonna go to your computer, go to like your C user drive. So for me, it's JONAT. I can't name it after my name. Your user will be something different. So let me go through that. Be C. You go to users, and you'll see your user in there. And then you should in here have you probably don't, but you will need what's called a WSL config file. So I'm just going to open this guy in Notepad like so. And there's not much in there, but to create a new one, you can just go here to your text editor. You're just going to copy and paste what I have in here. Mine might look a little different, but this is all you need is this WSL2. And then you're going to say, give it swap and memory 64 gigs. I'm going to save this as a text file. We'll just call it WS. It should be .WSL config. Remember, there's a dot at the start, so don't miss that. You're just going to save it, and it's going to save it as probably a .txt. So you just got to go, let's see here. Let me just save it to my desktop so you can see it. So I save my desktop, save, and then I'm going to go to my desktop, and it's this WSL config.txt. I'm just going to delete everything out of that at the end. So now it just says WSL config. You're going to copy that file, and you're going to put it in your user folder. So I already have mine there. So super easy. And so now you're going to want to, at that point, restart. So for here, you're going to want to restart WSL. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to say WSL shut down. So that'll shut down WSL. So now if I type in that WSL LV, you will see that they're both stopped. So I want to start this one back up. So I'm just going to go here and click it again and restart it. That's the easiest way if you're not used to using Windows sub Linux here to do that. So now I can verify the changes. So again, I can type that free-h. And so again, I see I have all this access. So yours should show something like mine. Again, if you have 120 gigs, skip that part. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is install CUDA tool. Okay, I've installed CUDA Toolkit for WSL. This is optional. I'm going to skip it for this tutorial. If you're going to do anything else with this Ubuntu install, like if you want to try other projects that require a CUDA Toolkit and not Docker, then follow these instructions. I think everyone should have this set up on the computer, but we're going to skip that. We're actually going to install Docker first. So we just need to go and basically go through these line by line. So I'm just going to copy these line by line. First thing I do is a sudo apt update. I may have already done that. Like so. All right. Then I want to go here and say apt install and just go through here line by line. Like so. Grab this curl line. This is getting a key. So it's pretty easy though. You're just going to kind of work your way through this text. I'm going to run an update again. Here we go. So now it's going to install Docker. And again, you don't have to know what most of this stuff's actually doing. You just kind of follow the instructions here. The nice thing, a lot of this stuff setting up on Linux is just command prompt, one after another. Okay, now I'm going to add my user. So, and now I just need to shut down WSL. So close this, go to command prompt. Okay, now it should be shut down. Okay, perfect. Just gonna close that, go back to Ubuntu. I may be moving a little fast for you. Sorry for going fast, but it's just a lot of copying and pasting and waiting. There we go. And now I just gotta enable the Docker service. So sudo service Docker, put in my password, like so. You don't really know it's running. That's why we have to do this test installation. So just test installation like so. It won't be able to find the image. So what it's going to do is it's going to download the Hello World Docker image and then deploy it. So here we go. If you see this, it says hello from Docker. This message shows that the installation appears to be working correctly. Yes, we're done. So that's great. So basically Docker is a way for you to run a bunch of packaged code that comes from NVIDIA or someone else where they can like package all the libraries, everything you would need, ready to go. And so it makes this whole entire thing so easy. You don't have to go download all the dependencies one by one and configure them, which I love about Docker. So the next thing we do is install the NVIDIA Container Toolkit, which is basically now a container, a Docker, it's called Docker Container, that will have everything we need to run Cosmos, except for the Cosmos code itself, which doesn't take very long, and some checkpoints. But we're gonna run this. We're gonna set up this CUDA container toolkit, and what it's gonna do is then basically allow us to access our GPU within Docker. So basically, again, we're gonna get back down to just copying lines of code. Careful here, these curl ones. You're gonna get this middle one. If this GPG is like a key that'll let us download things. So, and a lot of times you won't see anything happen. You're just kind of like giving it some sort of instruction, but the lines start at curl and now these indents. So you want to make sure you get the curl to the end here. So this last one is just all 3 lines at once. All right, and that should be it. Now I need to update my package list. And then again, we're going to go through these line by line. So it's pulling information, things like that, setting things up from NVIDIA itself. Okay, now it's saying I should restart Docker, and that's what this is doing. Okay, so I'm going to put that in. You should be seeing this path like this. And then we're going to do this last one. And now it's going to run for a while. So it's going to download a bunch of information. Okay, so now download it. So now it's showing that, okay, now it's showing Docker has your NVIDIA SMI. It's showing I have CUDA version 12.6. Here's my GPU, says RTX 6000 Ada, things like that, how much memory is being used, things like that. So it's exactly how I want. Okay, so the next thing is here is clone the repository. So now we have Docker, like the CUDA, the container toolkit all set up. So we have access to our GPU. We need to clone the actual code. So I'm just gonna get clone. Okay, so I ran into this already once. So it says I don't have access to the right repository. So if you run into this, get rid of this last part here where it says git clone, like so. And then you're gonna go to the top of my instruction page to the very start, and you want the fork from NVIDIA Cosmos. You want that original one. So I'm gonna open up in a new tab. You want the original NVIDIA Cosmos GitHub, not mine, and then go here. So it should be Cosmos. It shouldn't have forked or anything about me on there. And you're just going to go to this code part. You're going to copy that. You're copying the download HTML URL. And then I'm going to go back to my instructions. So git. So we're telling it use git. We're going to clone. We're going to clone the code. Bam. Doesn't take very long. There's actually not a lot of code that it needs to pull. So now going back to my direction, so make sure you're back where it says Cosmos WS2. You need to then change your directory. So don't miss this step. You want to change your directory to the Cosmos directory. And then build the Docker image using the Docker file. So you're going to follow these last 3 prompts. So this one is going to take a while. So I am going to pause this. At this point, you're just waiting, and once you got this all done and this is downloaded all this, come back to my instructions and I will walk you through the rest. Okay, I see that it's all done. All this blue is on your screen and you should see back to whatever your path is. And then, so we're just gonna go here where it says Docker run, the container. So it basically just built the image, it built Cosmos for you into a Docker. So like so, not much happens. And then it says we basically ran the Docker image and then we're gonna attach to it. So you know you're in this like special Docker environment when you see this root, and then it's unique for you, but you'll see like a code here and then workspace hash like that. So that means you're within the Docker container. And before I go further, I just want to show you one thing that I will have in the instructions, but people will often miss is if I close my Ubuntu and I bring it back up like so, I'm now out of that Docker container. So to get it re-going, I'm going to type in Docker start, then Cosmos _ container. Type right. And then Docker, instead of start, it'll be attach, like so. So now I'm back in there. So that's how you get back into your Docker. People don't realize when you like restart when you restart Ubuntu, your WSL instance, you are outside of your container and then you got to restart it, or else you're just in your WSL file structure. So this part we're done, and now we're get to closer to the fun part, but you're still a little ways away. So now we got to get down to what's called inference. So how do I run all this stuff? So I'm gonna go back in my instructions. I'll probably have a link in the instructions as I'm realizing it should be there. But we finished the installation, so now we're at what's called inference. So if you're not used to this technology, there's they train what's called a big world model or a big model about how this all works. And then you're going to give it a prompt, and it's going to basically, inference is going to say, take all that information in the model, and it's going to then create an image or a video based off of that. So that's inferencing. So for us, I'm going to show you diffusion inference. To be honest, they are all almost identical instructions. So if I go here, if you were to look at this page and then look at the other page, you'll see that it's almost exactly the same. Just you will copy the things out of one version or the other, autoregressive or diffusion differently, but it all runs the same. So if you know this one, running the other one is not a big difference. Okay, so now we get past here. We have a table of contents. Don't worry about that. We already basically set up your Docker environment. So again, you can skip this. Already did it. Now we need to download the checkpoints from Hugging Face. And so you want to go to the Pixels Hugging Face model page. So I'm going to just open that in a new tab. And at this point, if you don't have a Hugging Face account, you will need to create one. So go ahead and create an account. If you do have one, good for you. This is what's called a gated model, in that you will have to apply for access to this model. They will give it to you, not a problem. You just got to put in the information and to get it, and there you go. And then there's, I believe, a couple more models in here. I don't know if they listed them. There is like 2 or 3 models that you will need access to, and I don't know what they all are because I already did it. But when they ask you for to say, hey, I can't download something, I need access, then all you got to do is just go to that page it tells you that you don't have access to, and go ask for access, and it'll give it to you either instantly or very shortly after. So now we have to download what are called model checkpoints. So basically, I'm going to download these really large files that give instruction or give influence on how we generate videos, and you need those. They're huge, and you get them from Hugging Face. And so again, if you don't have the instructions for, if you don't have an account for Hugging Face, go create one. And then we're basically going to be grabbing these weights from Hugging Face. You didn't actually have to click into there. But you're just going to follow these instructions. So we're going to log in using it with an access token. So we're just going to copy again this line and paste it in there. And it has like it in the Docker, it has the Hugging Face API to go talk to Hugging Face, and it'll say enter your token. And so what is that? So if I go to my Hugging Face account, and at the top right, you can go to your access tokens. Again, I need to log in. You need to log in, and then you have these tokens. So you have you might have multiple, you might have none, depends where you are. Let's just create a new token. I'm just going to call this Cosmos 2. It needs to be what's called read instructions, and hit create token. And it's going to give you this token code, and you're going to copy that token code, and then you're going to go to your command prompt and you're going to paste that code in. You will not see it. It says input will be hidden. So if you hit control paste, it's there, trust me. And then you're going to hit enter. Add this to your get credential. I'm going to say yes. I don't think it'll let me, but now you're like in Hugging Face. So you get this red. Don't worry about that. I think if I had no, I wouldn't have gotten that. But it says it has been saved, login successful. That's what I'm looking for. So if I go back to instructions, now I need to download these weights. And so I have all this really bold text because you got to make sure you download the right ones. So if you're running on a 24 gig RAM GPU, you can only really run the 7B model. And as I'm looking at this right now, I notice I need to update this, but the time I publish this will be correct. You're going to copy and paste in this like so to download the model, and just hit enter and it'll start downloading. A warning, downloading the 7B and 14B models is over 200 gigabytes of storage space. So make sure you have that space on your PC and you are ready to let it sit and download for a while. So that's what you're going to do. If you have a bigger GPU, I'm running a 6000 Ada. You can download just the 14B model, which is like the bigger model, or you can download both models if you want to play with them both and compare. But for most of you, I actually suggest just get the 7B model, start out with that. It's faster. You kind of learn how this works. And if you want better results and you have a better GPU, get the second one. So then you can just go and run this instructions again, and it will see that you already have some of the stuff downloaded, and it'll download the correct models. So here I say you can download the 14B later. And the only difference between these lines is just which model is listed that you get. So I'm gonna copy this guy, and I'm gonna put it in there. Shoot, I'm just gonna put it in just so you get a good idea of what you should start seeing on the screen. But I'm gonna kill it so I don't have to sit here and wait for half hour. So here, like so, hit enter, and it'll start going. Again, I'm gonna cancel this, but this will run for a while. So I don't want you to be like all, like wondering, is this right? This will run for a while. And what it's gonna do is then put all these checkpoint files into your Linux folder. So how do you get to that? Is you can open up File Explorer, and if you hit backspace WSL and the money sign, it'll bring up your different instance folder or files. You may also see it down here in network. I do not, just because of some things I've changed on my computer, but you may see Ubuntu down here as well. It's one quick way to get into it. And I'm going to go into the one I already have set up, and you should be able to find all this in your home, and then your user folder, and then Cosmos. And it's going to download everything into this checkpoints folder, just like that. So it's all in there when it's in the checkpoints folder, and then you can reference, do you have everything you need? And this is where I've seen people go wrong, is they've somehow interrupted the download process, and they have to either restart the download or something like that. So once that's downloaded, come back to this tutorial, and then we'll move from there. Okay, so now I've downloaded everything. I'm good to go. You have all those checkpoints. Now we get to the very fun part. We get to start making some models, and we can play with the different model types. So there's this text to world and a video to world model, which we can run. And the difference is, one is I'm going to give it a text prompt, and it's going to create a video what the world looks like. So I can bring one of those up. So if I go to my folder structure here, I'm going to go to my output folder. And here's one where I put the text prompt. It's this really long text prompt. It actually created that for me about a race car. But let's just take a quick look what that looked like. So it's this race car driving. And so you put this prompt in and it's going to create this 120 frame video. So if I go here, you'll see it's going to basically run and then generate a video for you. And they give you instructions on how to run each one of these. So I'm just going to walk you through the different ways to run this. And then you should be able from there to go all on your own to make as many videos as you want. So we'll start out with you can do like a single video at a time, or you can batch your videos. So I just want to make one video, or do I want to make a bunch of videos? And then do I want to use text, or do I want to use a video or image as the prompt to start out with? So let's just do the easiest. Just do this called text to world. So if I go down here, we have some sample commands. And I may change this by the time I also publish this to make it a little bit more clear. But basically, we have these commands for running it on your computer and how easy they are to run. So here it'll say, here's an example of a 7B model using a low memory GPU. And to them, low memory means a 3090, 4090, 24 gigs. So I'm just going to use this as what I'm going to show you. If you have a really nice GPU, you might be able to get away with one of these. But as I go further down, they'll tell you you can modify the scripts if you have more or less virtual RAM and what you can get away with. So for us, let's just stick with this one. It takes the longest, and it's this part here. So I'm just going to copy. And then if I were you, I'd open up like, again, Notepad, or for me, I'm going to open up Notepad++. I'm going to go to a new, I'm going to paste it in there. And that way it's an easy place for me to now go modify this text before I put it into Linux. So I don't have to like copy and paste and then edit within Linux. I can easily then click around. So you're going to copy all that. And I'm going to walk you through what each of these parameters do. So the first thing you actually need to do is give it a prompt. And so to do that is we're going to describe a scene. So if I go to my Ubuntu, if you don't have it already launched, I'm gonna launch it. Again, Docker start Docker start Cosmos container, Docker attach Cosmos container. So, and then I'm going to give it a prompt. So I'm going to type in, make this bigger for you guys. I'm going to type in prompt equals, and then open quotation. That way I can put a block of text in there. It'll take it all in. So I could say, I don't know, a Formula One, let's say Formula car driver racing down a track at night. I don't know. Make it real simple and hit enter. And now if I type in echo and then $prompt, you can see that saved as what's called a formula, or sorry, that's saved as a variable. And so, but if you just put that in, you don't have to do the echo. That's just me showing that now it's like saved into the system temporarily. Then I'm going to run a code. And so what it's going to do here is I've copied all this is basically saying it's going to run Python. It's going to run text to world. So we're going to run this text to world model. It's got these checkpoint directories. So where are those big models that we downloaded? Don't need to change any of this. By default, it should be correct. Here you go. That's the name of the model. If you want to run 14B, you can just change this to 14B, or you can keep it at 7. The prompt, again, I give you that prompt. So there you go. There's your prompt. If you wanted to, you could put here a race car, driving. You could put that right there if you want as well. I just like to type it in ahead of time. And then the video save name. So you need to change this. So I'm going to call this video save name race car night because it was just a car driving at night. Then you can offload your tokenizer. These things, just kind of leave them as is. If you have a smaller GPU, if you have a larger GPU, you can remove these three. I believe you can really remove these three, but double check the instructions. So I'm just going to take all of this. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to paste it in here. And it'll probably give me some sort of thing about pasting multiple things at once, but maybe not. Okay, I made a mistake somewhere. Okay, so I had accidentally modified that when I put it in there. So now it's going to run, and you're going to see it's going to do all these things. It's going to run your prompt. It's going to use a random seed, and then it's going to run what's called a negative prompt. So things that not to do. I don't know how to change it. You might be able to change it. Then it's going to run what's called a prompt upsampler. So as I go look at these, it's going to eventually export a video and a text. So this text is like crazy. It's like a breathtaking Formula One racing sequence, blah, 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 blah. It's like a movie dramatization. So what's happening is that it's going to then run all of this, and it's going to upsample your words into a more dramatic scene. And if you don't want it to do that, then you're going to have to override that. So I'm gonna basically not run this again, because now it's going to run for like 15 minutes on my computer. But when it's done, it's going to then, in your Cosmos, is in your output, it's going to output one of these videos and the prompt that goes with it. And so that's all it takes to run one of those. So for that race car one, it will probably look just like my race car, which was your race car. Probably look just like that. So you'll get this video. It'll always be 120 frames. Just like that. Looks nice. And then you'll also get a text with the prompt. So I'm going to go ahead and kill this. I may run out of, I don't even know if I can run my recording while running this, because it is pretty intensive on my computer. So that's how you run text to prompt. Now, if I want to run that again, like so, but I want to override the prompt upscale so it doesn't change my words, and you come all the way down here, you can go in the instructions. There's all these parameters that you can give it. And what you're looking for is disable prompt upscaler. So if I take this guy and I go to my text here, I'm just going to add a space and then paste that in there. So now it's going to disable my prompt upscaler. It's also going to export a video at 1280 by 704. Really random, but you can also change the height and width output. But look at what it supports. 704 by 960, 1280 by 704, 960 by 960. So make sure that you stick to those. You can change the frame rate. Here's the different variables that you can kind of play with. Random seed, you can change the seed so you can run the same prompt over and over. But if I do this and now I run it with the disabled upsampler to my prompt, it'll put the exact same thing in there. And you will run into an occasion where it will what's called the safety guard. So I can't tell it to be something dangerous, like someone's, doing some unsafe thing. If you'll get a critical error, and I'll show you that. What I do is I take the prompt that they show out of the error in, and they'll show you what was wrong with it. Then I'll just modify my prompt, the prompt that they upscaled, so it's not unsafe, and then paste it back in as my prompt. So if I go back here, if I want to, disable the prompt upsampler, I either have to manually put the prompt back in here, but doing the prompt, or again, I can go just change the words in the quotations here. So whatever, that would be your prompt. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm not showing every single little step in this tutorial, but that should make sense. So you can now modify this text to world as much as you want. Now let's say I want to batch text this prompt. So all I got to do is go to Notepad, like so. I'm going to create a new note, and then I'm going to go up to the instructions on this giant page where it says prompt. So this is, I want to then batch this, and run like multiple videos at once, I just start, it has as many as I want. So we have prompt, and this could be, you know, race car, blah, blah, blah. And this one could be stone. Let me make this bigger. Stone building, walking around. I'm not typing correct. As you go and you put all your prompts in, you're just going to then hit file and save. And I'm going to save this to, again, my desktop. I'm going to find that file on my desktop. I'm going to start a new tab here. My desktop. Here it is. I'm going to rename it. I'm going to call it batch underbar prompts. And then you need to change the file type to JSONL. So JSONL. And you sure you want to do that? Yes. Now it's a JSON file. And you're just going to copy that and then go to your outputs folder on Ubuntu. Like so. And then I create, so right now I have an outputs, create an inputs folder. So here's my inputs folder. I'm going to just paste that JSON in there. And then now I have like an input of a bunch of prompts it can run. And so if you follow the directions, they have, here's how to run a batch generation for that. So I'm going to copy, go to my text editor, paste that in. And so it's a little different. Oh, make sure you delete that top part. And it's going to say, okay, so now it's going to run text to world again. And then what you want to change is the batch input path. So I put that actually in inputs / batch underboard prompts. So now it's knowing where to find that folder. And then it says, where do you want to save that? So I'm going to put that in outputs, and I'm going to call that like, I don't know, batch prompts. And so it's going to create a folder. So what that would look like is when it's done, it'll make a folder in your outputs of your batched videos. And it'll call them like number 0, 1, 2, 3. So here's 1, 2. So as it runs, it's just going to then run the upscaler, and it's going to run it. If it has a problem with one of your prompts, it'll skip it and move on to the next one and create a bunch. So that's, you just take that. And do notice that their example doesn't have all the offloading. So you want to go up here and you actually want to grab all of these, it says offloads, because that'll make it so it'll run on your machine. Like so. I'm going to take that, copy, paste it in, and now it'll run a batch and then export a folder of your batch prompts. Super easy. Okay, so we're almost done here. We have one more mode really, and I think this is the most interesting. So as I go down in the instructions, you can do what's called video to prompt. I may have skipped it all. Video, there's a video to world. So what it's going to do is it's going to take an input video, and it's going to take the last 1 to 9 frames and predict the rest of the video. So if I put an input, if I go here, I go to my inputs, and I'm going to input, here's a good one. I'm going to input an image. Inputting this image, just a single image. And then I ran that, and it's going to output a video from that. So let's see here. Complex. So then it outputs a video like so. Pretty cool. So it tries to guess like what's happening in that scene. What it's going to do is it's going to take that picture and it's going to describe it in a prompt, and it's going to create this video, and it's going to seed it with the text and that video. So as you can see, it described the scene as well and creates that scene for you. So to do that, you need, again, in your inputs folder, you need to put in either an image or a video. So I have like this driving first person video, like so, and then as an input, and then we're going to basically run the video generation. So here's video to world. And again, you're going to work with this middle one. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this middle port here and go back to my trusty notes editor. And so now you'll notice I'm using video to world, and it's going to find the checkpoints for video to world 7B. Again, you can make this 14 if you want to try the bigger model. Then it's going to input video path. So again, I made this inputs to make my life easy. Inputs, and then you need that file, and it's case sensitive. So let's say I'm inputting this complex. I just go and I'm going to copy that so I make sure I get it just right. It's complex.jpg. It's got to be exactly the same. Input, since it's an image I'm using, 1 frame. If you're doing a video, make it 9 frames because it's going to look at the last 9 frames to predict the next set of 120 frames. So I'll leave this as 1. And then it's going to save the name. So I could call this building render, whatever, something like that. You don't have to have the if I went back, you'll notice it doesn't have the file type. It'll be an MP4 every time. So it could be building render like so. And then I'm just going to take all this, copy, and go here. Looks like I already had something in here. It's going to paste it in here, and it's going to run it. So again, if I start running it, you're going to get a bunch of text. I'm going to have to kill this because I'm not able to run recording and running this all at once. So it starts running it, and it's going to first thing it's going to do is it's going to upsample the image and all that. So hopefully this kills. And so when you're done, you'll end up with a video that looks like Cosmos. So I like to show this example where I have the first person driving like so. And then if I go to my outputs, you end up with, there you go. And so notice how, the camera moved, but you get this output and it tries to predict what's next. You can, if you go look at this, you can disable the prompt about the scene, but I like to let it do what it does. But you can disable, you can change the file output like I showed you with text to world, all those different things you can do. But here for text to world specifically, there's just different things you need to change, you can change. They have some instructions on that, but hopefully this makes sense. So that's how you run those two. If you want a batch video, batching video is a little different. So if you go up to the top, sorry, I'm flying through this, but as you go back up to the top, they have the batch. If I want to batch video, I'm going to take this. I'm going to overwrite that. You say visual instead input, and then the path. So this would be inputs, and then your video or your image. So maybe it was a JPEG, whatever it is. And then once you got all those loaded in and saved, okay, you go back to the bottom and okay, they have the batch generation. So again, you're gonna copy these. Notice that these are a little different. So I'm gonna copy it, go back to my trusty notepad, and then say you have your checkpoint directory, checkpoints, all that. None of this again changed at the top. Your video to world, but again, you want your inputs / and then whatever that JSON was called. So you want to make sure that's right. I had it as batch prompts like so. Your video save folder. So again, it's going to make a folder. So outputs, and then I might, you can create a folder. It could be batch buildings, whatever. If you have a bunch of buildings you're doing, offload your prompt. So again, you got to make sure you have all these things offloaded. You want to grab all those, put them in. And the number of input frames, if you're doing, again, 1 for an image or 9 if you're doing a video. You can actually pick somewhere in between 1 and 9. Those are the min and max that you can pick between. But for images, again, it's always just 1. If you give it more than 1, it'll error out. So that's all it is. There is this offloading strategy as well where I'll say, hey, if you have a better GPU, you can turn off, I can turn off these two. So what is this? The prompt ups out, the prompt ups sampler, the guardrails, and the tokenizer. So if I go here, so if I have let's say a If I have 48 gigs, I can turn off these, let's see here, tokenizer, diffusion, and text encoder. So if you have a big GPU, it should look something like that. So hopefully that makes sense. As I go through here, I'll probably modify this page to make more sense. This is as it came from NVIDIA, which I think makes sense to some people. But at the bottom, they do have some things about prompting instructions. Like the model does not handle prompts involving camera control well. That's going to be in the post-training. The upsampler, they said optimal 120 words, really descriptive. So there's things that you can look at in here that will really help you out as well, and you'll be on your way. So I hope that makes sense. One last note, if you do have questions as you go through and you run into an issue, this is a forked repo, so you're not able to like really put any issues in here. But if you go back to the start of my repo and back to then the Cosmos, you can go to the issues here, put in your issue, and people may or may not help you. A lot of times people are willing to jump in. This is NVIDIA, so there will probably be some developers actually dedicated to making sure this works. Okay, so there you have it. We started and it was daytime, and we're done and it's nighttime. That's how long it takes to get going, but that's the world of AI. If you found this video really helpful, I would really love that you follow my page. I will have more on this generative AI stuff, more on Gaussian splatting, more on all those sorts of things like that. And it really means a lot as I grow this channel that people are actually interested in these topics, and do ask questions in the comments. So that's very appreciative. If you do have some interesting results, please put them together in like a highlight reel, put them on YouTube, tag me on LinkedIn. I'm very active there. I'll make sure all of the links to everything is in the bottom of this video. Thank you so much for watching this, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.